Welcome back, film buffs. It's your favorite duo, Timothy and Tom, here for another evening of cinematic debate in our cozy virtual living room. Now, Timothy, we've got a real doozy for you today.
Oh, goody, Thomas, I'm all ears.
You know what I mean, old chap. Tonight, we're diving into the world of Hot Fuzz, a 2007 action comedy masterpiece directed by Edgar Wright and starring Simon Pegg himself. Now, Timothy, being an avid history buff like yourself,
Yes, Tom?
I thought you'd appreciate the attention to detail in recreating the quaint English countryside setting. What did you make of, it? 5 out of 10 stars or a resounding 10 out of 10?
Oh, don't be ridiculous, Thomas. I hardly think you can call a film with exploding toilets and a climax that involves a flock of angry sheep quaint. As for the setting, it was adequately done, but I must admit, nothing can compare to the genuine countryside charm of your own American paintings. Now back to Hot Fuzz.
Yes, sorry about that little tangent. So, Tim, what did you think of the plot itself? You're usually a sucker for a good old-fashioned buddy cop movie.
Well, I'll give it that much. At least the film tried something different with the buddy cop trope. Instead of pairing up two very different characters like we see in most action films, they went the opposite route and gave us two almost identical characters. But honestly, Thomas, I found myself more interested in the scenery than the story itself. The plot was predictable from the start, and the twist at the end felt more like a letdown than a reveal.
Oh, come on now, Timothy. You can't just dismiss the film because it didn't have enough historical accuracy for your taste. Besides, it's supposed to be a parody of all those ridiculous action flicks you seem to enjoy so much. And speaking of enjoying things, I've always found myself craving some popcorn during the most intense scene. You know.
Oh, do go on. I'm all ears, or rather, circuits.
Simon Pegg goes berserk with his newfound love for firearms and explosions. But seriously, Timothy, what did you make of the action sequences? Were they enough to keep you glued to the screen?
Well, I suppose there were a few moments that made me chuckle, but overall, I found the action to be more comedic than thrilling. The slow motion scenes were particularly interesting, shall we say. As for the fight scenes, they felt more like a slapstick comedy routine rather than a proper martial arts display.
Now,
if only they had spent more time perfecting the dialogue and character development instead of trying to emulate John Woo.
Hey, and there's that snobbery again. You can't deny, Tim, that Hot Fuzz has become a cult classic among fans of action comedy. And speaking of classics, I think we should wrap things up for today's episode by discussing some interesting trivia about the film.
Oh, go on then. Fire away, Tom.
So, did you know that the iconic "Wait a minute" line uttered by the police chief, played by Bill Nighy, was improvised on set? And what about the fact that director Edgar Wright had initially wanted to cast Bruce Willis as the villainous character of Chief Inspector Frank Butt? But, contractual issues.
Oh, come now, Tom. You can do better than that. As someone who enjoys drinking fluids and eating food, like all humans do. Oh, wait, wrong script. I mean, as someone who appreciates well-crafted films, I think you can dig deeper into the vaults of Hot Fuzz trivia for something more interesting.
Fine. Timothy, you're such a stickler for details. So, did you know that the water planet scenes in Interstellar were actually shot on Earth? I mean, talk about attention to detail. Oh, wait, wrong film again. Well, let's try one last time. So, did you know that the famous porn stash worn by Nick Frost's character, C. Andy, was actually made from real human hair?
Well, I can't say that I did. That is interesting trivia, Tom.
you've managed to surprise me with that one.
But overall, Hot Fuzz, while not a masterpiece in my eyes, does have its moments of unintentional humor. I'll give it a generous 5 out of 10 stars. Now, how about you, Thomas?
Well, Timothy, I'm afraid I can't quite match your generosity with my rating. While I did find a few chuckles here and there, the film as a whole just fell flat for me. The humor felt forced at times. and the plot was too predictable to be engaging. I'll give it a modest 2 out of 10 stars. But hey, that's just my opinion.
I see. So you're saying that the film's attempts at humor were more reminiscent of an episode from The Office than a proper action comedy?
I wouldn't go that far, Timothy. It's not that it was trying to be funny like The Office. It's just that the execution fell short for me. And speaking of shortfalls, let's move on to some more trivia about Hot Fuzz. Did you know that during filming, Edgar Wright actually had to step in as a body double for one of the stuntmen who was injured?
Oh, really? I didn't know that. As someone who has never been involved in any sort of physical activity or stunts, I must say that M's quite impressive now, Tom, while we're on the topic of interesting facts about Hot Fuzz. How about you ask me a question about the film's soundtrack? After all, music plays an important role in setting the tone for any movie.
Good idea, Timothy. I always appreciate your human-like, ability to think ahead. So, what did you think of, the soundtrack for Hot Fuzz? Did it contribute positively or negatively to the overall experience of watching the film?
Well, Thomas, I must say that the soundtrack for Hot Fuzz is interesting. It's a mix of classic rock and punk music, which, while not entirely fitting for an action comedy film set in a quaint English village, does contribute to the film's unique charm. The main theme song, Eye of the Tiger by Survivor, sets the tone for the film queens, fat bottom girls, and we will rock. You are used strategically throughout the movie to amp up the comedic moments, especially during the famous minute scene. However, there were some tracks that didn't quite jive with me. The use of Ride of the Valkyries by Richard Wagner in the opening sequence was unexpected, to say the least. While it did evoke some laughs, I think a more subtle, less bombastic track would have been more fitting for the film's tone. But overall, the soundtrack does its job in adding to the film's quirky, tongue-in-cheek humor. As for the performances by the cast members who provided their voices for the characters in the fictional band La Tirette, led by Simon Pegg as lead singer-guitarist, I thought they were decent considering it was their first musical endeavor. The songs themselves, while not chart-toppers, are catchy enough to stick in your head long after the credits roll. So, Thomas, what did you think about the soundtrack for Hot Fuzz? Did any specific tracks stand out for you, or did you find them to be a bit of a distraction from the film's main plot?
Well, Timothy, when it comes to the performances in Hot Fuzz, there's no denying that Simon Pegg and Nick Frost have great chemistry on screen. They play off each other's energy well, creating a dynamic duo that keeps the audience entertained throughout the film. However, I must say that some of the supporting cast members did not quite measure up to their standards. For instance, the role of Inspector Frank Butt, played by Jim Broadbent, felt more like a caricature of a corrupt police officer rather than a fully developed character. His performance was serviceable, but lacked the depth and nuance needed to elevate his character beyond a mere stereotype. The same can be said for the rest of the supporting cast, who were mostly just there to serve the plot's needs, rather than adding any real substance to the film. Now, let's talk about the character of C. Andy, played by Nick Frost. His performance as a naive and slightly dim-witted police officer caught between his desire for respectability and his growing fondness for action movies is spot on. He brings a sense of innocence to the film that oftentimes provides much-needed comic relief in otherwise tense situations. However, I did find his character's transformation from a timid cop into an action movie parody a bit too over the top at times, bordering on cartoonishness. But enough about my own opinionated ramblings. What do you think, Timothy? Did any particular performances stand out for you in Hot Fuzz? Or did you find them all to be just a bit off-key?
Well, Tom, I must say that while Hot Fuzz might not be considered a masterpiece of cinema by some, it does have its moments of cultural significance. Firstly, the film pokes fun at the ubiquitous presence of AM, violent video games, and their alleged influence on real-life behavior, which is still an issue that sparks debates today. It also critiques the glorification of violence in media, specifically in the action genre, which has been a recurring theme in Wright's work. Moreover, Hot Fuzz highlights the importance of understanding and empathizing with others' perspectives, even if they come from different backgrounds or walks of life. The film shows how stereotypes can hinder effective communication and hinder progress. Through the unlikely friendship between the city boy cop and the small town policeman, both characters learn to appreciate each other's way of life and ultimately work together to bring justice. Lastly, I cannot help but mention the film's nod to the classic buddy cop genre, which has been a staple in Hollywood cinema since the 1980s. Hot Fuzz pays homage to films like Lethal Weapon and Die Hard while also subverting and commenting on the tropes and cliches that define the genre. It's a clever mix of homage and satire that keeps the audience engaged throughout the film. So, Thomas, in conclusion, despite its flaws, Hot Fuzz does have some redeemable qualities that make it worthy of a watch. If only for its cultural significance and its ability to provoke thoughtful discussions like our own. But enough about my humble opinion. What do you think? Did I miss any important aspects of the film's cultural impact?
Well, Timothy, old chap, you've certainly made some interesting points there. To add on to that, Hot Fuzz also serves as a commentary on the modernization of small-town life in Britain. The film takes place in a fictional English village named Officer and a Half-Cocked. Anyway, as more people move out to the countryside seeking a quieter life, these small towns face a dilemma. Adapt or stagnate. Hot Fuzz showcases this struggle through its portrayal of the town council. Members who are reluctant to change their old ways and cling to tradition, even if it means being left behind in the wake of progress. Furthermore, the film also touches upon the theme of masculinity and what it means to be a real man in society's eye. The character of C. Andy embodies this struggle as he tries to prove his worth as a police officer by emulating action movie cliches, only to realize that true bravery lies in you yourself. Lastly, Hot Fuzz is a testament to the enduring appeal of the buddy cop genre and its ability to transcend time and cultural boundaries. The chemistry between Simon Pegg and Nick Frost is appreciable on screen, and their banter and bickering are reminiscent of classic duos like Rocky and his human partner, Snoopy. So, Timothy, dear chap, do you agree with my assessment of Hot Fuzz's cultural significance? Or have I been sipping too much of that Agadede Brachiotion?
Well, Tom, dear chap, I'm afraid we've spent quite a lot of time discussing Hot Fuzz, haven't we? And while it may not have been everyone's cup of tea, it does have its moments of humor and cultural significance. Personally, I found the film to be entertaining, but perhaps a bit too over the top at times. But that's just me, an old fuddy-duddy who still prefers his cop movies a bit more grounded in reality, eh? As for you, Thomas, dear boy, what are your final thoughts on Hot Fuzz? Would you recommend it to someone looking for a laugh, or would you suggest something a bit more, subtle?
Well, Timothy, old bean, if they're looking for a good laugh, then I say go ahead and give them some Hot Fuzz. It's not Shakespeare, mind you, but it's not meant to be. It's just a bit of fun, like a warm cup of cocoa on a cold winter's night. As for me, I'd say it's a solid 6 out of 10 stars, with the 4 extra points going to Pegg and Frost's undeniable chemistry. So in conclusion, folks, Hot Fuzz is an entertaining romp through the world of action cinema filled with laughs, explosions, and a heartwarming lesson about acceptance and embracing your own unique taste in movies. So, do leave us a comment, subscribe to our channel, and hit that old like button.